Hello, I'm Doug Smith, and this is the 3 May 2013 edition of Portsmouth This Week, the voice of Portsmouth Town Hall. My guest today is Dave Croston, the chairman of the Portsmouth School Committee. Welcome, Dave. Welcome. I'm glad you came back. I think you were only here about a month ago, so we have a lot to talk about, I think. And you have a lot going on, I know.
We have a lot going on, and I appreciate everything you guys, the whole team here at Portsmouth This Week does, and I thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure learning about all the things we're going to be talking about today. I guess the biggest issue is you guys will be presenting your budget to the Town Council on the 13th of May. Very appropriate day, by the way. Could you provide us with some highlights of what you're asking for?
So we are going to the Town Council asking for basically the same amount of tax levy as we did last year. We have found that we are running surplus funds in this year's budget. We are able to absolutely absorb what are state aid cuts, what are impact aid cuts, which is from the federal government for our military facilities, and still keep it within budget. I think this is one of the first budgets. We have a new director of finance, Chris Dioro. Fabulous job he's doing, and in 5 short weeks, he's really now given us reality as far as where do we stand in the actual expenditures this year to what we have budgeted. What we have determined now is what is a true budget. And I think that this committee is very proud to actually bring over what we think is, in the last 5 years, one of the first true budgets that will recognize what the true cost of running this district is.
I'd like to get Chris on the show here at some point in the future. Perhaps both of you could come on in.
And if I say it publicly, he'll have to come. So I will guarantee that he will come. So we're requesting roughly a little bit over $37 million, $37,247,000. The tax levy request is $30,248,000. And I think we're going to discuss a little bit about what that tax levy is and what some of the state laws are. But that is a 0% increase. Now, when I was here last, we talked about we're adding full-day kindergarten. We are making investments in curriculum. So we're very proud of what we've been able to do with what the town has provided us, and we're so thankful for that. I do believe our greatest economic engine to this town is our schools, and I appreciate the town continuing to invest in the schools. We will be cautious, conservative, but there are times that we have to make investments, and I think we'll talk about some of those investments today.
Yeah, I think it's great because I know the last time we were on, we talked about the impact of those state and federal cuts. And I think it's great that you're able to, have somebody look at the actual funds and come up with a way that ameliorates this somewhat, at least brings it down to a neutral impact in that.
There's no question it's a short-term impact. I mean, as we get out 5 years,
absolutely, it's going to continue. So.
We are losing $250,000 cumulatively until in 2010. Let's see, 8 years from today. So 2021, we will lose $2 million a year in state aid to education.
And then it becomes
on
big
an annualized
money,
basis. And so there is a divergent curve that we have to figure out how to backfill that revenue.
Okay.
And we have ideas.
Sounds like Chris is the guy to help you figure that out going forward.
We'll take anyone who can.
Okay, great. We heard this week about the town's capital improvement plan, and what is the school's capital request for fiscal year 2014? So
the request we're making on the 13th is for $350,000, which is $200,000 for continued upgrades in the buildings, and that could be anywhere from windows to safety improvements. We are asking $150,000 for technology, of which, if we broke it out, it's roughly $70,000 for networking and the balance for probably just refreshing some of the computers we have. It's a fascinating time in education, though, because now all our high-stake testing, which you would know as NECAP, which I talked about a little bit 3 weeks ago, that is going to what's called the PARC assessment, which is an online assessment. Quite frankly, we just don't have enough bandwidth in all our schools. I mean, so we have bandwidth on our internal network, but we just don't have enough internet traffic. And if these tests are actually being delivered via the internet, So we have to make some investments to make sure our switching network and schools, much like businesses, are changing. And even though I would love to say we could stay in the past, I mean, we really need to make that investment.
As is society. I mean,
Unfortunately.
look around, social media and everything else is kind of the way to go now. And I think these kids will do it without us if we don't show them the right ways to do it and show them the capabilities. So, and that's your business. Besides being the chair of the Portsmouth School Committee, that you're in the tech field. So I think we got a great match here. So.
Well, and we have a great tech crew, and we've actually talked with the town about sharing our tech team across the entire town, and we are very excited about continuing those discussions.
As am I, and I've got a question to ask you at the end about that. What are some of the present capital projects that you guys have in mind besides the general things you just mentioned? I know one of the issues that I thought was kind of exciting was a security upgrade. Very timely, I think, and something that's necessary. Could you explain those a little bit?
And unfortunately needed. I mean,
unfortunately, that's the way we are.
So what we've done is, as we've come in and looked at our financial operations, some of this we have to look at. All right, we've been given under the kindness of the town council a series of warrants that date back almost annually. But right now, we're still working on FY11 warrants, FY12 warrants, and FY13 warrants. We have a backlog in the schools in capital projects of roughly about $800,000, which is completely unacceptable to this new committee.
These are warrants or loans made?
Already made that have been provided to the
yet.
School, have not been used yet.
Okay.
And so we have sat down as a team since this school committee has come in, has sat. And now with the new business manager or director of finance, we have a plan in place to actually get most of these done in the next 6 months. They include security upgrades, which include cameras in the public areas of our schools and the exterior of our schools. It includes some physical improvements. I don't want to get into specifics because I don't think that is good for anyone in the town. But these monies go into eyewash and acid stations for proper disposal. They go into grease traps and exterior lighting.
Yeah, all that safety stuff that
we
you
still
need.
have asbestos tiles in some of our elementary schools that have to be removed. So, but the biggest changes that you'll see is we're doing fire code upgrades. For years, ever since the Station nightclub fire, we have had to actually sprinkle the schools. We got a waiver back in, I think, 2005 or 2006 to delay 3 years. Well, that 3 years has gone well past its mark. So we are spending $737,000 for a new sprinkler system for the Melville School this summer. And that is on debt funding. That is part of a warrant or part of the capital improvement plan of last year. That being said, we have 40% reimbursement from the state on those funds. Now, we will come in next year, and instead of borrowing the money, we will use surplus money, and roughly about $750,000 to actually put sprinklers in the Hathaway School. Now, you're going to ask the question, if you're, and I'll ask it for you, I guess, that, why borrow Melville and not borrow Hathaway? The reality is, every time we borrow funds, which will be, I'm sure, a topic of this discussion, it costs the town money. So the town has to pick up the debt service, and quite frankly, they just don't have the funds to do that. So the reason we chose $350 is because it was a reasonable sum of money that we felt comfortable that, if necessary, the schools could afford. Two, the reason we're actually spending the $750,000 out of warrant money is because we believe it is unnecessary or not worth the cost of borrowing those funds. We have $3,900,000 roughly in surplus, and we believe that is the best use. Now, saying that, going out 5, 6, 7 years, I mean, schools have operational challenges, but I do believe right now we have an economic challenge that we have to help address and help the town address.
So these sprinkler systems, that seems to be very expensive, $700,000 per school. I mean,
Oh, it's
wow.
and quite frankly, we can vacate the schools probably in less than 2
Yeah.
minutes, and it's really to preserve the buildings. Well, we would love to not preserve
have a
these
reason to.
post-war era schools.
Yeah, understood.
You know, our custodial crew, they do a great job maintaining it, but they still are aged. But I would never, we're doing it because we have to. It's code, and it maintains our buildings to the highest of safety and security.
Yeah. We'll get to this debt service issue in a second, but I just wondered, there are a bunch of sports-related football field, other kind of things as well that you guys are trying to move forward. Can you talk about those a little bit? We
are. I call it kind of the T-cubed project because it's the track, it's the turf, and tennis. Since I've been involved in the schools, which goes back about 12 years, we've needed a new track, and we've patched the track. We've done everything we could to maintain the life of the track. This is Portsmouth High School track. So it's a community asset, but clearly we have both boys and girls track teams, and it's falling apart. I mean, we've needed this for at least the last 6 years. That being said, so there's a need to upgrade that track facility. There's a need to upgrade the physical playing space, which is the football field, if you will, lacrosse field. I mean, right now, before we put lacrosse into the school, that football field could rest for at least a good half year, grass back over, and then be ready for the following football season. That can't happen anymore. So we have actually a pending bill, one way or the other, to actually rehab that surface area. Now, a group of parents, sports boosters, if you will, have come forward and pledged $700,000 for an artificial turf, a turf field, that could have 365 days of use, technically. People plow it. It's the strangest thing in the world to see soccer in the middle of winter on a field. But it is synthetic turf with rubber pellets, very similar to what you see at Foxborough Stadium. Gillette Stadium, sorry, I'm dating myself. Didn't say Schaefer Stadium. We've made a pledge that said that we would consider upgrading that field if the entire turf surface was actually covered by fundraising. And we believe they have met that bar. Now, finally, we have a tennis court, and we have cracks in the tennis court that are literally...
Sure, I know. Filled with asphalt. It's like the roads.
We're getting to the point where, and our girls are Division II champions. Our boys are probably right behind them. And if we are going to maintain these sports and maintain a competitive advantage or a competitive program, we have to upgrade these facilities. You know, what is sad, and I think the town's going through this right now with roads and other issues, is when we don't make these investments on a timely basis and stretch them out, we have kind of these large needs.
Yeah, you have these urgent needs that are required, and it costs a lot more money to get everything done that way.
And it costs in the aggregate more money. I mean, maybe if we spaced it out, we would have done better. So this school committee has hired an engineering firm for $64,000, Gale Associates. Gale is the preeminent New England sports facility engineer. They've been fabulous. If they're going to put together a cost estimate for us, if we think that's acceptable, and we think the turf will actually be covered by the fundraising raising proceeds, our T-Cube project may actually come to reality. And if it is, it's going to be a fire drill all summer long, such that field is open for homecoming on September 28th.
Wow, this year?
Of this year.
Holy mackerel. Our 375th year, as a matter of fact.
Holy something. But
yeah, that's great. Well, I think we owe a lot of kudos to the Portsmouth Sports Boosters and the people that have kicked in the money for this, because that's a fantastic community resource, a great thing for people to do for their town.
I mean, whether it's a track and people come down in the morning and
Yeah,
run it
exactly.
or walk it, or whether it's the sports facility that will be open to our not-for-profits,
Yeah.
the reality is it's time for us to make some investments, and we're making investments in curriculum, we're making investments in the buildings, we're making investments in our sports facilities.
In the future, essentially, what we're investing in. And
I
I'm
honestly
taking your
think
words
that's the
away
case.
from you, but I think that's the case.
And I think we're being conservative, because in each one of these cases, we're getting state reimbursement for a lot of these funds. And you know, our total out-of-pocket at the end probably be roughly about $500,000. And I think for $500,000, this is a great investment. Much like the gym was a great investment.
Yeah.
For $3 million, that is an asset that is utilized on a daily basis. And if you've ever been up there in a winter night, it is basketball game after basketball game after basketball game.
Yeah.
So it's fabulous.
So we'll end up with some really top-notch athletic facilities for our kids in the next couple of years here, going forward.
Even though this isn't, you know, we're not trying to be a college.
Yeah.
We're trying to have safe playing fields.
Yeah.
The awareness of concussions, the awareness of knee and hip injuries. I mean, we cannot put our kids, I would not put our kids on that field now. It is as if it is a cement facility. I mean, it's just dirt that's been beaten down year after year after year.
I'm sure it feels like that if you get tackled on it, too.
I'm sure if your head hits it, yes. So.
Let me turn to this other topic, because I think we have to. It's been in the news, in the Newport Daily News a couple of days ago on Wednesday, and it's got to do with having the schools pay their own debt service, and it was brought up by Keith Hamilton and the town council about proposing this, and on the face of it, it would seem to make ultimate sense. But then, thanks to you, I read the law, and could you just explain this a little bit and tell us where we are in this thing? It seems very bizarre from an outside standpoint, because these are debts that were incurred by the schools, but are a town expense, as I think probably all school things are a town expense, and yet the town can't have the school use their surplus to pay the debt service off. So can you talk about where we are on that?
So let's first start out by saying this school committee agrees with Mr. Hamilton that we will do every effort to try to help the town in these difficult times balance their budget and actually make their investments necessary, whether it be assets of the town or whether it be to the departments of this town. We have recognized the need to try to help the town with roughly about $240,000. So over the years, we've had a significant number of warrants. We're not trying to actually bubble the ocean and pay all of those. What we're trying to say is, over the years, we have built up a little bit of a surplus. We'd like to try to help on some of the present debt service. If we took our FY12 capital improvements, if we took our FY13 capital improvements and what are proposed, the $350, that debt service is roughly $240,000 a year. Now that traditionally has been actually picked up by the town. You know, we're one community, we're one tax base, one tax levy. So technically, you know, it's the same tax dollar paying it.
Right.
But it is the regulations and the laws that actually set up basically schools separate from towns, and basically set towns as the tax agency for the schools, have also put in law some regulation. And it's probably, I can actually, under Rhode Island General Law 16.723, there are a couple of issues that come up. One is that once provided a budget, once provided a sum of money in a capital year, that following capital year has to maintain that same effort. So if they gave us $30 million last year, they have to give us $30 million
I saw that
this year.
too, yeah.
All right, it's called maintenance of effort. But more importantly, in this case, and this came up when we transferred the $1 million in surplus over to the town a year ago, and so whenever any state funds, and I'm reading from subsection B, whenever any state funds are appropriated for educational purposes, the funds shall be used for educational purposes only. So even within that body of that law, they're saying, no, you cannot, if once allocated to education, must be used for education.
Okay.
So then there's it further states, all state and local funds unexpended by the end of the fiscal year of appropriation shall remain a surplus of the school committee and shall not revert to the municipality. Tiverton actually took this to court. And so I think we agree with Mr. Hamilton, but Mr. Hamilton probably was not privy to discussions that I've had with, and the school committee has had, with both John Klimm and Jim Seveny over many months. So we approached RIDE, I would say 2 months ago, and requested that we cover the debt service and we add the debt service into our budget. RIDE denied us, and then we sort of, through Dave Foucher, appealed to the Municipal Affairs Group. And then Municipal Affairs actually said if RIDE would not allow it, they would not allow it. So we basically then took a different tact. And I have written a letter as of a week and a half ago to Commissioner Gist requesting a variance, a one-time variance for $240,000 on maintenance of effort. And so we are waiting back to hear from RIDE on that.
What happened to Tiverton's court case, or is it still being heard?
No, Tiverton won the school department won the case that once allocated.
They were doing it the opposite. They were trying to keep it in the schools.
The town council in this case, no, the town council would not provide it to the schools. They had basically taken the surplus dollars, and so that then the school committee actually filed suit to get them back.
To keep it back, yeah.
So.
Okay, so it's up to the lawyers right now, I guess, huh?
Well, no. In our case, I think we're trying to do everything we possibly can to work within the law and to work within the institutions of the law, because the Rhode Island Department of Education functionally is a regulatory agency. So we have to abide by what they say. So we have asked them for a one-time variance, and I'm hopeful we get it, because I think that will help the town immensely.
Okay. Well, I think I don't know if I'm like most citizens, but I think most citizens would hope that the school and the town works together on things like this, and shares resources and revenues and other things. And I hope you get the right answer back, and maybe there's a way to fix this in the future. I don't know, but I appreciate your efforts, though.
We are absolutely committed to be working with the town. It's not us and them. It's not us versus them. It's it's really us. So and we're committed to that.
Yeah, I think that's a great attitude to have. On a sort of a negative note, I know many of us saw in the paper the other day about this survey that was done on drugs in the schools in Portsmouth, and I'm not sure if we were all surprised. I think some of the numbers were a lot higher than I guess we thought, but we all know kids do this stuff. I just guess I didn't know they started that early.
Well, I think
they did it as much.
And what we've been approached by a number of parents that were out of the schools, actually, that their kids were on to college.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to look at right now is the dropout rate in college, because what came about is that there was a persistent problem that lasted well beyond the high school years, that may have started in the high school years. So that got me started to think about this back in the fall. This study was never. We gave $2,500 to the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition to help them with this study, and I want to thank Ray Davis, who's a local resident and actually did a fabulous job. This is a community effort that we need to actually address. In 12th grade, in the last 30 days, 49% of the students actually used marijuana, and 67% used alcohol. It doesn't get a heck of a lot better in 11th grade, where 42% used marijuana and 47 alcohol. The 10th grade is 34 marijuana and 39 alcohol, and this is the last 30 days. Now, in statistical analysis, you look at your P levels and you say, how real is this study?
How valid is this, yeah.
Well, we believe it has a 99% P level, which is a good, strong
Pretty high,
study.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of time, one of the greatest concerns is perception. So for 12th grade boys, 70% thought it was okay to smoke marijuana on a daily basis and not be impacted by it. Now, there have been studies about, especially in growing adolescent males and females, that of IQ drop, of significant health concerns. I mean, these kids would say no to cigarettes because the toxins in the...
It'd be bad for your health.
It'd be horrible.
Yeah.
And yet, marijuana is probably 5 times worse. And so, to me, it's a community effort of changing perception and raising the bar in education. But I want this, our charge right now is how do we get the students talking to students? How do we get the students to affect change? Yeah. Adults can affect change and the students can rebel, but I mean, this is all about students. So this is something we will be working very closely with Portsmouth Prevention Coalition to address.
Yeah. And this is a tough thing because I suspect strongly that it's a social thing, it's a societal thing. It's not just probably our kids, but I also think that with over half of the kids doing this and thinking like this, that parents who think their kids would never do that kind of stuff are, they're not really paying attention to what's going on because it's sad, but I think that's just the way our society is. And it's going to be very difficult to change that societal thing. And I think you're right, it's got to be a comprehensive approach that gets parents, kids, everybody involved in this thing.
Well, and the scary thing is I've gotten a number of calls. This is like touching the third rail,
Yeah.
And
I'm sure it is, yeah. A lot of, yeah, exactly.
And parents want to be ignorant about this, and they can't be.
Yeah.
It's not our role necessarily to play parent, and I don't want to play parent, but it's our role to actually affect change. And I'm not going to sit as chair of a school committee with a car accident with...
yeah, because that's what it leads to. It leads
right.
to kids dying, and it leads to kids failing in life, and
right.
yeah. Okay, well, good luck with that one. And again, that's what this program is all about. If there are things we can do,
well, I think that
out.
Actually at a future program we should have Ray Davis in and discuss the whole survey.
Let me just ask you something else. I know you've been doing this partnership with the town hall to try to upgrade their IT capability and things, which I'm particularly excited about, as you know. Can you tell me how that's going and when we can possibly expect public Wi-Fi when we go into the town hall?
So as we tape this on the 3rd of May, we are finalizing the cable pulling as of this morning. So
okay.
You can imagine if we're trying to save money in this lovely state, the procurement laws are fascinating. So you just can't go out and buy the cheapest thing.
I know, you have to go out to bid.
So I've donated some things. I've actually donated some time. Our IT group has as well. And the reality is we will have Wi-Fi in the town council chambers probably by the end of next week. We will have the TVs mounted. I'm hoping that they are mounted for our presentation on the 13th. So
that would really be great if it was. It would be perfect.
Then if they didn't work, we'd have free tech support just in case.
That's great. Well, listen, Dave, we're just about out of time. I want to thank you again for coming in. It's always a pleasure and an education, really, to hear from what's going on in the schools. I hope we'll keep in touch, and I hope you use our venue here to bring in some of your folks to talk about what you're doing. I particularly would like to help certainly in the drug alcohol issue, but also in the finances as we move forward. So
I deeply appreciate it. I think that people can't come out and come to our school committee meetings, and whatever they read in the paper is probably snippets of what goes on. So
sure.
Venues like this are ideal for us to be able to give the residents kind of an idea of the breadth of what goes into the school committee.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for being on.
Yeah.
And this is Doug Smith just signing off. Look for us in the next edition of Portsmouth This Week. Thank you very much.